Hello and welcome to After Scientology, Straight Up and Vertical, the weekly show where Tony Ortega and I get together and go over the week's events in the world of Scientology, as reported on Tony's Substack, address right there on the screen. Hey, Tony, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Chris. Always good to be here.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, let's get to it. This was a big week, and there was a lot of things to comment on. I was actually going over everything, and I was like, wow, this and this and this. So, first off, we had what I will say was an interesting defection news. Joy Vila, somebody who has, this is not the first time that this woman has been discussed on the bunker, on your reporting. She's been very colorful in the past, but now she's out.
Yeah, I think my first story about her at the bunker was like 2013 or 2014. I've been paying attention to her for a long time.
Yeah.
And she was somebody who was trying very hard to become a celebrity in the Scientology mode, and she was trying this and that. And very dedicated to Scientology. She married another Scientologist. They became patron meritorious, $250,000 donors. And then she exploded in popularity because she showed up at the Grammys in 2017, right after President Trump had signed up, had taken the oath for the first office. Just a few days later, she shows up at the Grammys in a Trump dress, and it just made her overnight, much more well known. And she used it to her advantage. She got into the White House. She even considered a run for Congress. Then she kind of disappeared for a while. Remember, Chris,
Yep.
that photo showed up of her at a Dianetics table in Brighton Beach in England, and she just looked miserable. Well, it turns out that was her low point. We've now learned that that was kind of the end of the rope for her. And I started to hear some time ago that she was out and that she was getting ready to say something. And so I was just like everybody else, I was waiting. And then that morning, I think it was Wednesday, I just happened to be sitting at my computer when I saw the notification pop up that she was going live on Twitter. And the title was My Escape from Scientology. And so I jumped on there. And I just felt, since I was able to see it from the very beginning, I felt like, okay, I can, I'm on this. And I was able to put up a post about 20 minutes into her 3-hour video. So almost right away, a lot of people saw it and came and watched. Um, and I thought she did great. I mean, I thought she did really, really well talking about, the things that we suspected, that she was really into it. They kind of got her at a low point, that she became very involved. She got really well known because of the dress. That she had gotten all the way to OT preps, and that she had stalled then at St. Hill, and she was really miserable. She talked about making money from people that she recruited. She feels bad about that now. She talked about sex checking people and being sex checked. Really good stuff that, really corroborates what everyone else says when they leave Scientology, of course. And I just thought that was great that she was doing that. And she's going to do more. I mean, she's talking to people, and I think she's going to talk more and more about her experiences in Scientology. Now, she's couching everything in terms of her newfound sort of rededicated Christianity. So she's talking about Scientology being satanic, which, look, there's no question Hubbard was involved in the occult, but calling him and Crowley Satanists is not, I don't think that's
Not
quite right.
accurate.
But
No.
no, no question, Hubbard was deeply into the occult when he started creating these ideas. No question.
Yep. Yep.
But she's kind of seeing it through that lens. And then also she's still a very, dedicated conservative commentator. And so she's seeing things through that lens. So, she's not everybody's cup of tea, but I think she's doing a great job exposing Scientology. She said that she's the first celebrity to come out in 10 years. And, uh, we've had Scientology actually has had some other celebrities leave, like Beck, Laura Prepon and Jason Lee all left in the last 10 years. But she is the first Scientology celebrity, by their standards of celebrity, since Leah Remini to come out and speak openly about it. So that is I mean, I really credit her with that. She's doing a great job. And I think she really wants people to know how abusive it is. She really spoke very strong language. Did you get a chance to see some of that video of her first video?
I have read your rundown on it, and I saw some of her other statements, but I did not watch her whole video. It's on my to-do list. I very much have. I think I think there's 2 points on this one to make, because Joy has been an outrageous proponent of Trumpism and Scientology in the past. She's been a target of ridicule, and that we can't, I'm not going to apologize for that. It is what it is. But she made herself an outrageous public figure to provoke outrage, and she knew what she was doing, and that would be a result of that. So there's no reason to, to revisit any of that. I think that when people come out like she has, 100% of the time, just as fellow human beings, one to another, regardless of anything else going on, we can be happy for that human being. I made this point earlier today as well, is that I'm glad she's out. I'm glad she's dumped Hubbard's belief system, right? As she no longer believes he speaks sooth. And anybody who comes out is going to adopt some idea of what to think, and it's a work in progress, I guarantee you, for almost every single person coming out of a cult experience. So there's no judgment on my part about the fact that she had those beliefs or that she has moved on from them, except to say, well done. I'm very happy about that. Now, the second thing to say about her or anybody coming out of a destructive cult is, what degree of responsibility are they willing to take, and will they take for what they did when they were in? And that's a question everybody has to. It eventually comes and smacks everybody in the face. How they deal with it is a test of their character. I have no prejudgment about Joy on this. She made a video. She's already giving the goods on Scientology. So 2 thumbs up, actually, and admitting how she profited. I mean, there is responsibility being taken. So again, I think this is a thumbs up moment, in that direction is kind of where I'm coming from on
Yeah,
her.
she said that it's taken her a couple of years, that she's
Mm-hmm.
kind of been out for 2 years and really definitely since January decided to speak out. So almost as fast as you. Nobody's as fast as you, Chris, is come
Yeah,
out
that's
and come
true.
out and speak publicly. But
Right.
not only has she taken, decided to speak out relatively quickly, but she is taking responsibility. She is talking about things that where she was complicit and she was helping, get other people into it and take their money and sec check people. That's a big step. I mean, there are other people that, take, like you say, it's a process of understanding how they were sort of culpable and part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And she's pretty clear-eyed about that right away. So I think that's really good. Now, on the political side, I would just say, and this is something I've asked her, and I think we're going to get a chance to talk about this later on, is that okay? She was just at the White House this week. She was just there for this faith office. I don't know that she has quite the same political access that she once did. But Trump has appointed the richest Scientologist donor in the world to the Kennedy Center. We're going to talk about that a little later.
Yeah.
And he's got these other top Scientologists that are near him, and people like Pam Bondi that are very friendly with Scientology. So that's something I want to talk to Joy about. It's like, Scientology has done such a good job safe pointing the White House. What are you going to do with the access you have to the White House? And that could be interesting to see what she has to say about that. But
That's
number one, she's made a great decision, and I think she's done a great job on that video, and I think she deserves our support, and I'm really glad she's out.
absolutely. And I have no reason to disagree with anything you just said. Now, moving on from that. Oh, actually, one point I did want to bring up, which I thought was fascinating in your write-up from her long video, is she made the point that Grant Cardone and she, and I guess others who are in the MAGA circles, are telling people in the MAGA circles that they are Christians. And I am both shocked and unsurprised by the acceptable truth that these Scientologists are, in other words, the lies that the Scientologists are telling. You wouldn't, and it's funny to me because, of course, you viewers here are probably thinking, well, how could they possibly get away with that? Oh, if nobody has outed Trish Duggan in her MAGA circle, you think they're reading the bunker? I mean, they're not going to know. They don't
No.
have not going to have any reason to know
No.
that she's a Scientologist or that she's, that connected. Same with Grant Cardone. If he ain't talking about it, then how are they going to know? I thought that was fascinating. So that they can get away with it.
We'll have to ask her some more about that too.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, so Luke and Mission Impossible, the final reckoning, hopefully the final reckoning with this, what do they, franchise? Yes. What do we got?
Yeah, so I was fortunate. I got to work 20 years ago at New Times Los Angeles, which is a newspaper that no longer exists, with a very young Luke Thompson that was just starting out in his film reviewing career, and very well known film critic, known for speaking his mind. He tends to go against the grain. If everyone hates a film, he tends to like it. If everyone likes a film, he's critical about it. I like that about him. He's not afraid to express opinions that not everybody agrees with. And sometimes on these big franchise films, where every outlet needs a review, he finds that he just doesn't have an exclusive anywhere, and so he offers to me, and I'm happy to take him and pay him. So he reviewed Top Gun Maverick for us at the Underground Bunker. He reviewed the last Mission Impossible, the previous one, and now this is supposed to be the final Mission Impossible movie. And he said, "Listen, if you'd like a review, I'll give you a review." I said, "Absolutely." So, and look, he's legit. I think it's a very interesting review. And and the thing is, Chris, I say yes before he writes it. So, and again, nobody's going to tell Luke what to think. He might have written a review saying how much he loved it and Tom Cruise was great, but I trust him to say what the film is like. And it's a fun review. He's always so funny. He finds such really funny observations to make. The first wave of initial reviews that I saw on The Guardian and everywhere else were just like, greatest stunts ever. What a fitting end to the. But then you started to see some other reviews that were agreeing with Luke that are like, it's too long. The plot is weird. There's a lot of stuff that they don't need in here. And, so it's not just Luke who's saying these things about this film. I had one reader accuse me of just having this guy trash Tom Cruise, and it's not even a review. It's not true. He's a good film reviewer, and I think it's a fascinating and fun review. So once again, I'm so glad Luke Thompson's in the Underground Bunker.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, as someone who self-labeled cinephile, and that doesn't mean I'm deep in the classics, but I love movies, and I always have. And Mission Impossible movies are movies I should love, but it's Tom Cruise. I can't suspend disbelief with Tom Cruise. I just can't do it. Yeah. And Luke, his review has not only really funny banter and jokes, but very insightful points about plot and how Tom Cruise basically has infused his identity into this franchise, and that what you're seeing on screen is Tom Cruise at large. His personality is there. Now, any creator will tell you that their personality gets infused into their creations, and so Mission Impossible is unquestionably Tom Cruise's baby, and it's not, I'm not stretching or reaching here to say this. And isn't it interesting how that theme that Luke points out, the lone man saving the world, and nobody believes him, and nobody will support him, and they just have to trust him on faith alone that he is leading the charge to save the world, and he always pulls it off. And they never believe him and they never thank him. And it's a thankless count, but he just keeps going because he's so pure and good, as though he's like this modern knight or something. This is how Tom Cruise sees himself.
Well, that's how Scientology sees itself, right?
Yes, that's right. And I have to go there because it's so tied into the Scientology. It just is. And Luke, actually, his review, without making that final connection, points out, as a film reviewer, this film's infused with Cruise's personality. This is basically just him. And here it is, right? And it's really not that exciting. It's over long, it's over messaged, it's kind of boring. And the stunts don't even really, like, one of them works, the other one that's supposed to be the really big one doesn't even work. I think he was trying to arrange, by the way, I remember a couple of years ago reporting that he was trying to arrange a space up in space. He wanted to get filming up there, that clearly didn't work out. So his OT powers.
You don't think they're still going to do that?
I think his OT powers failed him. I don't think.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I didn't know if that was still on or not.
I'll bet you there are insurance issues he cannot overcome.
Yeah.
All right. But those were points that Luke nailed. Now, Aaron Cairo, skateboard phenom, but also executive director, San Francisco Church Scientology. You had some story on this.
Well, we've been talking about this for a while. We had heard that Aaron Cairo gave a speech at the birthday event. Mark Bunker last week came through with some wonderful audio from that event that got leaked out, and it was a David Miscavige introducing the L. Ron Hubbard Hall presentation, and then Mark let me know that he had more from that event as well, and so I put up an excerpt of the first 8 minutes of David Miscavige introducing the whole L. Ron Hubbard birthday event. I figured 8 minutes was about as much as anybody could take who wasn't stuck in the hall for 3 hours like those poor Scientologists. And we got, you got the typical thing where he's just, best ever this, best ever that. Yeah, whatever. But I was really intrigued that we also had the Aaron Cairo speech, because he just intrigues me. He's 40 now, so he's still young on the, Scientology scale. And he's well known for this YouTube channel called Braille Skateboarding that's got 6 million subscribers. Very well known in the skateboard world. What he does there is they make videos, and I like his approach. He says, skateboarding can be very cliquish and rude and make beginners feel like jerks. He really wants to create videos for that young guy trying his first trick. How do you do it? Here's how you do it. They also do crazy stuff and wild stunts, but they want the beginner to feel welcome. I think that's cool. And I think that's the key to his success and why it's lasted so long, is that he maintains that focus. Well, at the same time that he's running this 6 million subscriber YouTube channel that probably brings in tens of $1,000s a month, he's also the ED Day at the San Francisco Ideal Org, and he has been on staff for more than 20 years. And Chris, ED Day, that's a commitment. That's a day and night, less than minimum wage commitment. It's just amazing to me that he leads this double life. And, it's lately there's been some setbacks on the skateboarding side, and people are like, see, he's too committed to that Scientology thing. But I noticed that, David Miscavige has been making a big deal about these FEBC trainings, where there's making these crews from various orgs come to Flag, spend months or years doing this special golden age of admin training, sending them back. And it's like, now finally the Ideal Org is going to live up to the hype, right? And I could see that they were making a big deal about Aaron Cairo and the FEBC and the training.
Yep.
So when I heard that they had won the birthday game, and remember, Rod Keller, I remember, had written a great story for us years ago about showing that what usually happens is whatever the new ideal orgs are that have the grand opening will end up winning the birthday game. They have an advantage because remember, the way the stats are figured in the birthday game is not absolute numbers. Like we had 15 people go clear and they only had 13. No, it's how many more clears did you have this year than last year.
That's right.
So the new orgs that are starting from zero, they're at an advantage because everything's up, right? And so Rod was pointing out that this is why most years the birthday game winner is the new ideal org. Well, this year there were four of them. Austin, Chicago, Del Valle in Mexico City, and Paris. So you might think one of those would be number one. Well, Del Valle ended up being second place, supposedly by only 23 points, to the San Francisco Ideal Org, which is not a new one. Personally, I think Miscavige wanted to show that his FEBC idea, Flag Executive Briefing Course training, is the solution. And look, these guys from San Francisco came back from their FEBC and they've won, they beat the new orgs. I think there's something going on there. But anyway, Aaron Cairo gets to give a speech. And it's just, I don't know, it's just really interesting to me to hear him. I'm sure it's just sort of a typical speech as these go, but I don't know. There's something really kind of cringy to hear this guy thanking COB and thanking LRH and give these little anecdotes. Um, what did you think about what he said?
I had a lot of thoughts. I'm not going to share everything, but I'll try to keep this to the point. But there's a lot here. One, the speech as you reproduced it is just pure Scientology's in a lot of ways, not just the language of Scientology, but the whole tenor and character of it. Using, okay, this guy uses some examples that I just thought are too obviously out there for, I think everybody will get it right away. He's talking about how on one Thursday morning in the middle of an intense birthday game week, an accident shut down the sidewalk outside the org. The only way around it, straight through our front doors. And those detoured through our org weren't just passing by, they were starting their journey up the bridge. They walked through your building, dude. They didn't start anything, right? But this is how we're going to frame it. This is how we're going to frame it. They started their journey up the bridge, right? And
Yeah.
then the very next paragraph, he makes another dot connection that is just so offensive. It's just I have to point it out. So an FEBC is trained to create a new civilization, and since the return of our executives, crime in San Francisco has plummeted. The homicide rate hit its lowest in 60 years, and newspapers are calling the area around the org the new center of downtown. I would like Aaron to sit down and explain to me very carefully exactly what actions they took that resulted in homicides reducing in San Francisco. I could point out, hey, Aaron, you know, the GDP rose 14% in San Francisco over the last 10 years. What'd you all do to make that happen? Oh, homeless is down 7%. How did you all pull that off? A lot of way to happiness is that what you did? They will claim responsibility. In other words, here's my point, right? They
Yeah,
claim
but that's okay.
responsibility for
But
everything.
let me just say that is Scientology though.
That's
Scientology does that
yes,
all the so here, but here
yes.
was the one I wanted to get your reaction to.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's very much like Scientology to claim that people were walking in and becoming going on the
No,
bridge. It's very
no.
Scientology to claim that since we came back from Flag, crime is down.
Yeah.
But later in the speech,
Uh-huh.
remember they beat Del Valle, but supposedly only 23 points out of thousands.
Uh-huh.
And he says, you guys really pushed us beyond what we thought we could do. So we're sharing this award with you tonight. And I
Uh-huh.
thought, whoa, you don't do that in Scientology. You beat the other guys and stomp on their faces. You don't like hold them up and say, let's all celebrate together. That seemed very un-Scientology to me. That's the word I believe is that seemed reasonable, which is a curse word in Scientology,
Oh,
right?
that's an interesting take. Having been a full-time trainee in Scientology and having had that experience like Aaron did in Flag, I'm just going to push back because I'm going to say that there is a bonding that happens amongst the trainees. And it's really not a lot different than the bonding that happens in any stress-filled, anxiety-ridden environment. We see the same behavior, right? And when you come out of those things, those are your teammates, those are your brothers in arms a little bit. Having been there, done that, that's probably his fig leaf to his friends from Del Valle that he trained with, that he's like, hey, we beat you. But because here's the other point I want to make. Um, these stats are bullshit. It is
Yeah.
statistically impossible that only the orgs Miscavige favors are constantly winning the birthday game.
Yeah.
And so, but it's not just massaging by the staff. It's the Sea Org levels in between Miscavige and the staff that work the magic with the numbers to get what Miscavige wants,
Right.
regardless
Right.
of what
Right.
the orgs are producing. And that whole propaganda machine that is the Sea Org management structure kind of needs to be understood as what it is. It's an interesting insight into the whole machine of Scientology, that it really will alter reality to present David Miscavige with the picture he expects to see.
Right.
That's actually kind of the dictator problem. That's one of the things that happens with dictators is everybody becomes your yes men and they tell you exactly what you want. And that's the whole thing with Scientology with those stats. So it's a little sad to see somebody really my wrap up on for my thoughts on Aaron are how sad it is to see somebody so capable, so full of potential. It's 6 million subscribers is not nothing. I would kill for 6 million subscribers. I'm telling you right now, that's really amazing work. And apparently well produced work. It really helped a lot of people kind of work. I'm 2 thumbs up on that kind of thing. I can't judge him for that harshly. But then to spend all his time in Scientology, it's just so sad because
Yeah.
this is going nowhere,
Yeah.
and
And
that's really what this speech shows.
he's gold meritorious. He's donated $1 million to the IAS.
Ugh,
But I think he's a good guy, and it's just
yeah.
sort of sad to see him completely. And he gave a speech years ago where he talked about getting into Scientology, and what's really sad is one of the things that hooked him was a history of man.
Oh. I tell you, folks, it does. It does. This stuff, it works magic on people in ways you're dumbfounded. But I used to, when I was a kid, there was nothing that fascinated me more than the UFO stories
Yeah.
in Scientology. So I get it. I totally get it. Um, okay, well, that's the birthday game and Aaron Cairo. Now, let's go ahead and get to that Kennedy Center, Trish Duggan, Trump connections. It's just too much to ignore. I mean, we can't not comment on this because it's
Right.
so
And
intimately connected.
yeah, and every once in a while, the initial story I wrote a few months ago, I based on tax returns from the American First Policy Institute of 2021 and 2022. And that's the most recent that were available. Well, every once in a while I check, and this week I checked, and sure enough, the new one is there, 2023. That's now the most recent tax return from the America First Policy Institute. So I got it out and dug into it, and I wanted to make sure Trish Duggan's still director. Yes, she is. And same, Pam Bondi made a little more money. Uh, you know, I mean, the people above her on that list of directors are Linda McMahon, who's now Secretary of Education, and Brooke Rollins, who's now Secretary of Agriculture. And they were paying Pam Bondi for advisory services. She's now the Attorney General. I mean, both New York Times and Politico said, listen, if you want to understand why the Trump administration is doing what it's doing in this second term, yes, Project 2025 lays it out to a certain extent, but it's really the America First Policy Institute that planned this administration and it's that's where all the ideas are coming from.
That's
And
right.
it's, largely financed by Trish Duggan. And the reason I say that is this is a dark money organization, so they do not reveal their funds. And this past year, or in 2023, was $27 million in contributions. Where is that money coming from? Well, they won't say. However, that previous year, November 2022, they had their first ever awards at Mar-a-Lago, and they gave a special award to Trish that was named over this American who is credited with largely financing the American Revolution. And I thought, okay, now if you're going to give her an award based on a guy who's largely financing the American Revolution, aren't you saying that it's Trish Duggan who is largely financing the America First Policy Institute? Isn't she, she's probably one of the biggest donors of that $27 million? That's my guess. And I may be wrong, but I really do. I mean, she gave millions to Trump's campaign. I think she gave millions to America First, and that's why they're treating her like this, and
Yeah.
that's why Trump has now put her on the board of the Kennedy Center. They had their first board meeting there. It's a massive board at the Kennedy Center with all these Trump appointees. They then elected Trump to be the president of the Kennedy Center. And so he came down on March 17th, I think it was, to have their first meeting. And so I wanted to make sure that I requested from the Kennedy Center, can you just give me a list of who was there? They ignored me, but they did have a picture. So I did get a picture of Trish at that. But I'm just, obviously with so many people on that board, I don't know that Trish Duggan's going to have all that much influence. But what might they do? Well, I was looking at what she's been doing at her own place, which is that Imagine Museum in St. Petersburg, Florida. And I found that picture of her with the alien that I put on the story and saw that she's a big fan of Stephen Greer. I don't know if you're familiar with Greer, but he's one of these guys that's they're not Chris, they're not looking like you said when you were a kid, you're really into UFO stories. They're not looking for evidence of flying saucers. They're way past that. They're trying to figure out, okay, now what are the aliens are here. Now what's their agenda? How much are they intermarrying and intermixing? I mean, just wild, insane theories with zero evidence. They're just like past evidence. They're just trying to guess what
Right.
these aliens are doing, and they're all over. So
Right.
apparently, Trish is into that, and I pointed out, a Scientologist being into that's a little too on the nose. But I just can't help wondering if maybe that's what the Kennedy Center is going to be doing in the future. And so I wanted to put down a marker. So if in a year and a half or 2 years from now, they've got Stephen Greer and some other of these folks doing presidents doing the Kennedy Center, I could say I predicted this was coming. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I was having
Yeah.
fun.
It might be on the nose, but I'm telling you right now, it's not beyond the bound of reason to me. I mean, I was in that headspace, and it's a literal headspace. Aliens are real. Spaceships are real. Ancient civilizations are on this planet are real. Hubbard talks about them, therefore they're real.
Yeah.
And if Trish Duggan's a true believer, she believes it's real too. Um, I got to say it, now how much that's going to manifest, that whole connection is, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, it's crazy, but having only because I've been in that headspace and I know that the Scientology headspace will give this legitimacy. Trish Duggan, it could really literally be exactly as you've described. She is part of a movement that she is giving millions and millions and millions of dollars to because she believes it is going to reform America in a way that will make it more hospitable to Scientology and its deeper beliefs in the bigger picture beyond this planet. And this is the way Scientologists actually do think. So I don't want to make them out to be a bunch of weirdos. They already are. Again, I was there. It's weird. So the idea that Trish Duggan could have these incredibly weirdo ideas and be actually paying to materialize them or prep the world for them is wild as hell, and it's probably true. And it's
Yeah.
just insane that they are as tied in and connected with the Trump world as they are. But I don't know that there's an administration that they could get away with getting this tied in and close to, other than a
Yeah.
Trump
Yeah.
administration, if I'm being honest. So opportunism reigns, and that's what. And Trish is a savvy person. As crazy as her beliefs might be, she's still savvy. So I agree. I think we'll be, in a year from now, we'll be looking back on this conversation going, huh, we'll see what happens. Okay,
I mean,
finally.
or it's a big board. She may not. It's a big board. She may not have that much influence. She's obviously
Fair
on
enough.
it as a reward for spending
Yeah,
so much money. So we'll see. But I just thought it was worth making that little marker, putting that down.
absolutely. She's not giving that money for nothing. And I
Right.
don't know that it's all
Absolutely.
about a board position for her. I mean, maybe that's all she
Yeah.
wanted out of this whole thing, but that would surprise
Yeah.
me.
Okay.
Um, We'll have to see. We'll have to see
Yeah.
as time rolls out here. That America First thing, by the way, I did a whole podcast this week on that. If anybody watching my channel on my show here, you can check that out. Just this dropped just this last week. I got curious about this America First Policy Institute, and I agree with what Tony said. This is the group that has absolutely been, I mean, provably, reportedly, like this has been reported on. It's not just our conjecture. This is the group that is putting more people in positions of power within the Trump administration than any other single group, and is influencing legislation and executive orders more than any other single group. So this is absolutely the group to watch. Okay, so finally, we had really the kind of most reported and biggest Scientology story this week was the Clearwater no go on this street. What's the story? What happened?
Yeah. So we first heard, this was a few weeks ago, we heard that David Miscavige had personally met one-on-one with the city council members to convince them to talk to them about his plans, that he wants to build this L. Ron Hubbard Hall. We got confirmation that that was true, that the city council people had met with him, and that they were considering this sale. Uh, Scientology owns the land that they want to build this L. Ron Hubbard Hall auditorium on. They own the land that they want to put a little park dedicated to L. Ron Hubbard. Between them, and then the flag buildings on the other side, that's already up. Between them, there's this little street. And Scientology wants Clearwater to close it down and sell it to them for $1.3 million. And it would just tie it all together, right? And the initial vote was 3-2 in favor. And the third of those three votes was David Albritton. Well, it turns out at the last minute, another group came forward with a competing proposal. They call it Save the Garden. They want to instead honor the African American business district that was in that location decades ago with a park celebrating Clearwater's African American heritage, which is a great idea, a wonderful idea. And the city council, David Albritton, was agreed to be part of the majority that was saying, let's wait. Let's put the vote off a bit. Now that there's a competing proposal, let's at least look at it. So that was interesting. David Albritton was on board for the vote, but now he's saying, let's slow things down. Very interesting. So that got some momentum going for the Save the Garden people. Well, then about a week and a half ago, Mark Bunker told us that Albritton had gone on a local radio show with Sarah Heller of Scientology. And Mark said it looked like they have convinced David Albritton to go ahead with the vote to give it to Scientology. So then, and if you saw the video, Mark and I talked about, oh, it's a done deal. Okay. Then this past Monday, the city council had a work session. And a lot of people in the public were there arguing against, do the Save the Garden, forget Scientology. David Albritton shocked everybody because remember, just the week before, he'd gone on the radio, and it sounds like he was sold on the Scientology idea. But at Monday's work session, he complained that David Miscavige had still not turned over detailed plans of the project to the city. And so he was going to vote no on the Thursday vote. The scheduled final vote was this Thursday. And David Albritton now said he was a no. And so that's 3-2 against. Wow. That was huge. And the next 2 days before the vote, I just assume Scientology must be pulling out all the stops. They must be getting him the plans that he said he didn't have. Claire Headley suggested they might get Tom Cruise involved. I mean, that's how big this thing is for Dave. Tom DeVaught had told me that this hall is like the ultimate thing for Dave because it'll have L. Ron Hubbard's name on it, but it'll really be a monument to David Miscavige. And so, I assumed that Tuesday and Wednesday, we weren't going to hear about it, but behind the scenes, there was probably just a furious effort by Scientology. Well, that's not what happened. Thursday morning, the morning of the vote, the Fox affiliate reported that a Scientology attorney had submitted a letter withdrawing the application for the street. And the city council then took the vote off the agenda. Wow. Now, in that letter, they suggest that Scientology is going to rework their proposal and come back later, and they're going to focus on safety. Now, what that says to me is they're, and remember, they're in a strong position because they own, there's this little street. Scientology owns this property. Scientology owns this property. Scientology owns everything but the street itself. And they're going to say, look, we're going to have this hall. We're going to have the park. People are going to go back and forth. We can't have cars going through there. They're going to make it a safety thing. And that's what they're going to do when they come back, and we'll see. But the news this week is Dave blinked, right? They did not want to see this thing get voted down on Thursday night, so they pulled out of it. And does that mean he's going to, they were talking about groundbreaking for the hall itself this summer. Summer starts in a month and 3 days now. That's coming pretty quick. Is that going to be delayed as well? Would Dave delay on the hall if he's not sure that he's going to get the street? I mean, this was big. It showed Clearwater kind of fighting back. It showed Dave blinking. And of course, Heller had already kind of threatened that if we don't get this, you could forget about us developing Cleveland Street and everything else, which is like kind of an empty threat because, they've been waiting for Dave to do something with those properties. He hasn't done it yet. So big week, very surprising back and forth. David Albritton stood his ground, very, surprised everybody. The Save the Garden people obviously had an effect with just really very frenetic grassroots organizing. A lot of credit to go around, and just really, really interesting to watch this develop.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating story for Scientology watching because Clearwater finally, stands up. And as these things usually go down, it's one man who's at the center of this, right? As your reporting indicates, right? There's this guy, David, and
Albritton.
And he's a council member, and he's just going, yeah, no, I don't really see it. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to vote for it. I mean, it's not even like he's making some stand or Mark Bunker had to take him out for drinks or something. He's just like, yeah, I just don't know that I see it here. And good for him, right? For having a little backbone and not just going with the flow. I mean, that's what 3 out of 4 people will do. Now, that all being said, a couple comments here. One, we might need to start a Where's Sarah Heller campaign before too long, because I don't think we're going to be seeing her around very much. And she's probably in a lot of hot water right now. I conjectured earlier Miscavige might be so pissed he brings the RPF back just for her. And that's, a joke, but at the same time, poor girl. I mean, she probably did the best she could, but, she didn't get the job done. She's going to be a very visible target and pretty obvious one for Miscavige, in addition to whoever else is on the chain of command.
Chris, that engine in the Freewinds is not going to clean itself.
Exactly. So. And we might not see her. for some time, right? So just one thing for you. The other thing is, and this is actually, I really do mean this. I hope David Albritton learns to watch his back and understands who it is that he has disrupted, because he has now got a target on his back. Make no mistake about
Well,
it.
I
David
mean, I know, and
Miscavige.
all the jokes, I hope he doesn't have pets and that kind of, but you know what? Clearly, he was leaning towards voting. He did not have an issue with the project itself.
Yep.
Miscavige, and from the leak of audio we had, which was just 2 days before Albritton announced he changed his mind, by the way, it was clear that David Miscavige has that thing planned down to every nail and screw and plank and speaker.
Right.
Clearly Scientology has very detailed plans. Why aren't they showing Albritton these plans? It doesn't make any sense. So Miscavige's got no one to blame. I mean, he might go after Albritton, but I kind of feel like this was such a own goal, on Scientology's. They had the 3 votes they needed.
Oh
All
yeah.
Albritton
Oh
was
yeah.
asking for was some detailed plans, which is how hard would that be? Just show him the same thing you showed your followers at the LRH birthday. Sure, it's an embarrassing video, it's too over the top, but you'd have your project, you'd have your street. They have no one to blame but themselves, really.
Absolutely. And this is another sort of testimony to Miscavige's general incompetence. I mean, at the end of the day, it all does roll up to him. And let's remember, this is Mr. Micromanager. I mean, this is not, oh, Sarah really messed everything up for him. No, he was all over this down to the comma, and that's probably why it went off the rails for any number of reasons. They could have overloaded poor David with stuff, and he just went, "Get away from me!" It could have been any number of things that they could have done to screw it up, but guarantee they do, because they don't connect with people well. Scientologists, they just think they do. So this is a real. I agree that this was their screw up to make, and they really did quite bad. But I am serious that about 2 or 3 months from now, we're gonna want to be checking in on David, because Miscavige plays the long game. He's not going to necessarily be looking for retaliation next week or the week after. But he's going to be data collecting like mad right now. I'm guarantee you that is happening. So I hope the city council, and I mean all the city council, recognize what they're up against, because Scientology isn't playing around with this.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, Tony, great reporting this week.
What a
Really
week.
good
What a
stuff.
week.
Yeah. So last week when I asked you for what was up this next week, you were like, "Oh, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens."
Well,
Uh,
one thing I was expecting this week, I don't think I mentioned it last week, but I did expect the DA's response to come in on the Danny Masterson appeal.
yeah.
But they asked for another extension and got it. So that's been
Wow.
pushed off till middle of June.
Okay.
We'll have to wait on that, but I am curious about that.
All right. Well, we'll see what comes up this next week. It's always a surprise
It
around
is.
here. You
It
never
is.
know what's coming, and
Yeah.
stick around. Now, there again is Tony's Substack address. Go to it, get subscribed, get your daily notifications, and check back in with us on Mondays for the wrap. All right. See you guys next week. Tony, thanks for being part. Bye bye.